Reddit, a veritable hellscape of misinformation designed to confuse, confound, discourage, dishearten, and deeply depress us all. Falling down the proverbial Reddit rabbit hole is its own unique brand of torture, especially the threads in the dark diet culture web. So when I tumbled into the Reddit thread titled Skinny People Habits that featured over 700 comments, I knew we needed to talk. Hey everyone, I'm Abbey Sharp. Welcome to Abby's Kitchen. Don't forget to check out my disclaimer in the description and hit up that description as well for my free Hunger Cushion Combo ebook. So I was actually inspired to do this video after I was on TikTok and I saw fellow diet culture commentator Gal Raphael. She was sharing kind of what these skinny Reddit users were eating in a day. And I listened to them and I thought, yeah, we should probably unpack this. Now, please note that skinny people is not my preferred verbiage, but I'm gonna use it anyway because hey, diet culture is unfortunately our culture. And this is the language that the internet chooses to use. So I'm not gonna censor that out. I'm also not, I repeat, not encouraging anyone to become or aspire to be skinny. Chances are you've seen a lot of these skinny person observations floating around, aka things that others notice that folks in smaller bodies just tend to do. And my job here is to help you understand if these tips or observations are potential signs of a dysfunctional or a healthy relationship with food in a safe, science-grounded space. Whether or not they make a person skinny is in most cases a moot point to me. But let's dive into these observations while I make my kids and myself a little chickpea cookie dough. All right, observation number one, they socialize by burning calories, not consuming them. My skinny friend would suggest meeting up for a walk rather than for coffee or drinks. I've come to love this and I try to do it as much as possible. Socializing doesn't have to mean consuming calories. As I drink my coffee, I actually kind of love this. I feel like turning walking into a hangout actually creates a really positive association with movement by making it a more enjoyable, sustainable activity that we see as fun rather than as punishment or something that we have to do to burn calories.
He's a freak. He's a fast killer.
And walking not only burns some calories, which may contribute to weight maintenance, but it also helps to boost energy, improve our mood, and improve sleep and our circadian rhythm. Now, I don't want to create fear around going to dinner with friends because at the end of the day, we all need to eat. And as we'll get to, skinny people, they go out for dinner with friends too. But social isolation is probably one of the biggest challenges that people face when trying to meet health or body goals. And it's a major reason why people just don't usually stick to their plan. And unlike so many other kind of weight loss hacks, you're not really losing out on what actually matters, which in this case is the experience of socializing. So to me, this is like a win-win all around. And speaking of social hangouts, observation number two is taking leftovers home from restaurants. So she began to realize that her thinner friend never finished her meals when they went out. She would take the leftovers for another meal or leave some food on her plate that she wasn't hungry enough to eat. She didn't feel obligated to enjoy all of the food right there. So many of us grew up as part of the Clean Plate Club, and in a lot of cases, Clean Plate Clubbers come at it from a history of food insecurity or scarcity. So if this is your story, it's definitely worth working with a therapy team to unpack that. So being able to confidently pack up leftovers or leave food on our plate may simply just be a sign of having that early childhood food security. Alternatively, it may be a skinny person behavior that signifies a healthy relationship with food where you can honor your internal hunger cues rather than relying on just external ones like what is on your plate. And this in turn may help people effortlessly manage their weight. That said, I feel like it's hard to suggest this as a tip because intentionally forcing yourself to leave food on your plate or like just eat half of it and then pack up the other half to take home, like so many diet magazines have taught us, can actually further push us away from our true hunger cues. But I would say, assuming that food security is not an issue, I invite you to ask yourself how finishing everything on your plate is currently serving you. If waste is a concern, it's worth asking yourself if it's respecting your body to use it kind of like a trash can alternative when our body is saying, no, I actually don't want more. This is a big topic, more than I can get into in this video, but I've actually got a whole video on feeling your fullness that has lots of great exercises for my clean plate clubbers. All right, I'm gonna puree this up. Number 3, eating your dinner early. It seems like a lot of healthy people eat dinner rather early, and then after that, they're just done eating for the day. So it is true that late night eating is associated with greater risk of weight gain. And there are a number of potential reasons why this might be. One, our bodies are more sensitive to insulin earlier on in the day, which means that we can break down more glucose from food more efficiently and use it as energy. Number 2, skipping breakfast and eating most of our calories into the evening tends to increase our cortisol levels, while eating earlier on can help to stabilize them. 3, early research suggests that eating later on increases our hunger hormones, reduces daytime energy expenditure, and favors fat storage. And 4, and probably most significantly, most of us aren't just eating carrot sticks in front of the TV at 10 p.m., right? That said, ultimately, calories are king. And if you're not in a caloric surplus, you're not gonna gain weight, even if you are eating a late dinner or a bedtime snack. Not to mention, if you are a person who needs a bedtime snack to get a good sleep, like myself, you gotta honor that hunger, folks. Because a disrupted sleep from hunger is also associated with an increase in appetite the next day and weight gain over time. What's more important is trying to make balanced hunger-crushing snack choices throughout the day, including in the evening or at night. You guys know me. I'm not giving up my bedtime snack. Moving on to observation number 4, forgetting to eat. Literally all my thin friends and relatives forget to eat all the time. My dad is naturally very thin and active, and all my life he's just put bread in the toaster and forgotten it's there. He'll return hours later in the kitchen and jovially exclaim how he's done it again. LOL. Okay, I think what's at the core of this observation is that skinny people maybe aren't constantly thinking about food all day. They perhaps, on average, don't have that incessant food noise or food chatter that a lot of folks who struggle with weight gain or their relationship with food or both tend to have to muscle through every day. To someone with food noise, the thought of just like forgetting to eat is a complete impossibility. I actually talk a lot more about this in my Ozempic Diary series. For some, food noise can be the result of a history with dieting, and for others, there may be some kind of biological reward system disruptions going on. So this is not necessarily gonna be an easy fix for some folks. That said, one of the best ways to reduce food noise is to feed yourself regularly, consistently, and adequately. And that means not forgetting to eat. Because when we get super busy, when we get super busy at work and we don't take the time to eat lunch, what happens when we get home? Like, we face plant into that family-sized bag of Lay's, then we have dinner, then we play catch up all night long as our body and our mind can relax and realize how underfed it's been.
Ooh, dinner time. Oh!
And as we discussed, you're probably not gonna feel like getting your 5 to 10 veggie servings at 10 p.m. So this simply does increase the risk of having a less varied, less nutritious diet. If we wanna make space in our mind for things other than our next meal, we have to make sure that our body and mind knows that it's coming in a reasonable time. AKA, don't forget to eat. Let's puree again. Okay. Number 5, they don't sit still. This one says simply, they don't sit still, they get up, move around, stretch out, fidget, etc. So there is actually a scientific explanation behind this one, and it's also just further proof that you can trust your body because it's got your back. So in short, our body has all of these built-in compensatory mechanisms, right? That regulate our genetically preferred weight. And one of those regulatory mechanisms is called NEAT, which stands for non-exercise activity thermogenesis. So these are basically just unstructured, unplanned forms of energy expenditure. So things like fidgeting, conscious leg tapping, spontaneous muscle contractions, or just feeling the need to like stand up for your desk and walk around or stretch or clean or whatever. Anyone who knows me knows that I am a neat queen, and not in the tidy sense. Hashtag ADHD. But research suggests that NEAT tends to be greater in thin people compared to obese people. Now, obviously it might be hard to teach someone to just like fidget more, but even just being more mindful to stand or walk rather than sit throughout the day may be a more effective movement strategy than intentional exercise because A, energy expenditure induced by NEAT is much larger than from exercise when measured over the day, and B, we don't tend to reward ourselves with food when we fidget or stand up versus when we go to a 1-hour boot camp. Bottom line, any movement is good movement, regardless of what happens on the scale. Number 6, they don't use food as a reward. Yep, that's basically what she said. They don't reward themselves with food. So simple and to the point, basically, it is normal and healthy to have an emotional connection with food. So eating by our emotions sometimes, completely normal. But we do see greater chance of obesity and weight gain when it becomes our primary coping mechanism. Because when we use food as our reward, we're putting it up here on a pedestal. We also teach ourselves and our bodies that it's not even worthy of delicious food or adequate food unless we've dragged ourselves through something that we hate.
That's why everybody was applauding for me at the end. My guts and my heart.
And of course, that juxtaposition is going to cause a huge dopamine spike when you finally do get access to delicious foods, which is basically what happened in a lot of the infamous food addiction research. And this is likely kind of a bit of a chicken and an egg situation where skinny people stay skinny not by using food as rewards, but they also maybe don't need to use it as a reward because they generally may have a more balanced, neutral relationship with it. So again, we need to build body trust, which means loosening the reins a bit on diet rules while also coming up with some non-food rewards. So taking a bath, getting a mani-pedi with your girlfriend, watching your favorite movie, buying yourself flowers, etc. I'm gonna period this hopefully one more time. Number 7, eating mindfully. Food isn't a big deal. They don't get as excited over food. They aren't planning their next meal or worrying about calories. They just eat when they're hungry, and when they do, they eat smaller portions and eat slowly. Okay, so this pulls together a few observations that we've already discussed here, but it also draws on the principles of mindful eating. So eating mindfully means being more present with our food, which in turn helps us better understand how food makes us feel physically and also emotionally. So some strategies that we can kind of like mix into our routine include eliminating distractions, slowing down, and taking more time to chew our food more thoroughly, as well as periodically stopping every few minutes or every few bites to check in with our hunger again. It can also be helpful to bring awareness to the food that you are eating. So taking some time to like think and notice the color and the texture and the mouthfeel and the taste and the smell, etc. Basically engaging all the senses. Remember that fullness is a combination of satiety and satisfaction, and mindful eating specifically targets that satisfaction piece to prevent overeating later on. All right, number 8, drinking a lot of coffee and forgetting to eat. Observation: I've noticed my skinny friends drink a lot of coffee and they forget to eat. Yeah, I knew we would eventually run into some obviously problematic observations. Like, I also have seen a lot of skinny people chain smoke and forget to eat, but I'm not telling the world that that's like a legit health hack. First of all, I love my coffee, so I'm not on coffee. And sure, as I discussed in my video on caffeine and weight loss, some research suggests that coffee might slightly reduce appetite, but the appetite suppressing effects are short-lived. In other words, even if you didn't eat as much for breakfast because you just chugged like a venti Americano, you are more than likely just gonna make up for those calories later on in the day. And other research has found no difference in calorie intake after drinking coffee. So don't get hung up on the metabolism boosting benefits of having coffee. Overuse of faux energy from caffeine in lieu of real energy for your cells, aka food, is arguably disorderly in my books. So while skinny people might do this, it is not a healthy or sustainable tip. Like, coffee is life, but it's not a meal. Observation number 9, building balanced meals. Whenever I make a meal or snack, I mentally check if it has protein, carbs, and fat to make sure I'm fueling myself for longer. Can we make my smile even bigger, folks? I think I know an Abby's Kitchen subby when I see one, because this is straight out of the HCC handbook. Obviously, I've discussed this in my sustainable weight loss video here, and also basically everywhere across my channel, but using an additive approach by balancing meals with protein, fat, and fiber-rich carbs can effortlessly support sustainable weight loss. And I know this sounds kind of counterintuitive considering the decades-long diet culture rhetoric that we've been sold that suggests that you need to eat less to weigh less, which is not untrue on a calorie level, but we will never get out of scarcity mentality if we're constantly thinking about food, and we will never not be thinking about food if we're hungry, whether that's physical hunger or emotional hunger. So adding rather than subtracting hunger-crushing compounds helps keep us fuller longer, it helps prevent an eventual binge, and it helps to naturally edge out some of the less nutritious, higher calorie foods that typically make weight maintenance a lot harder. And tip number 10, drinking water with meals. I chug the out of water, especially at restaurants. And drinking while I'm eating fills me up a lot, even when I don't eat that much food. I drink like 3 glasses of water when I go out to eat. It allows food to better satiate me. So this observation I feel like can be helpful or harmful depending on how extreme you take it. First of all, despite what diet culture has taught us for many years, if you are hungry, you're probably not thirsty. You're probably hungry. Most of us know the difference between those two sensations. That said, research does suggest that drinking some water immediately before a meal can reduce calorie consumption at that meal by temporarily stretching the vagus nerve that makes us feel full. There's also some research on middle-aged and older adults that drinking water before each meal increases overall weight loss, but research in younger people hasn't really shown the same benefit, and we also don't know how well this hack works long-term. Like, folks, don't underestimate your body's intelligence. Once that water moves through your stomach and is absorbed and your brain realizes you didn't eat, your body will likely try to play catch up and it'll be pissed. Still, I think that having 3 cups of water at a restaurant is never a bad idea. Most of us don't drink enough water to begin with, and I always recommend extra water if there's alcohol involved. And typically, restaurants do serve much larger portions than we normally would need anyway, so a little bit of extra water could help us slow down and eat more mindfully. But otherwise, trying to chase away hunger all day with water, and also like coffee, is disorderly. Yes, water is important and it's key for weight loss, but we still do need to eat. Well, friends, I hope that helped clarify some of the most common dieting misconceptions on the World Wide Web. If you want some more evidence-based weight loss tips that are actually sustainable, I got a whole video that you can watch right here. And on that note, that is all that I have for you guys today. I would love to hear your thoughts on who or what you'd like to see me talk about next. Subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you next time on Abby's Kitchen. Bye!